and welcome to GameSack. We are talking about the Neo Geo CD this time.
The Neo Geo CD, I've been curious about this system. I mean, it sounds really cool and all, but the only thing I ever really hear about it is it has some crazy-ass loading times. I mean, can you confirm or deny this for me, Joe?
We will confirm or deny that in this very episode and show you lots of games. And we've covered the Neo Geo X in the past, which was
horrible.
Yeah, it's full of emulation and just it's not done very well.
Right.
But this is official SNK hardware, the real deal here.
Now, speaking of hardware, why don't you just dissect this thing for us and show us what it's all about?
Okay, let's take a look. The Neo Geo CD. The Neo Geo AES was known for its arcade-perfect games playable at home starting in 1990, but the cartridges cost an average of $250 per game or even more. So in 1994, SNK created the Neo Geo CD to offer games on cheaper CD-ROM discs, each costing around $50. The system itself cost around $250 and made it much easier to add Neo Geo games to your collection. There's 3 different versions of the hardware. The first one had a sliding tray, the second one was a top loader, and then there's the Japan-only CDZ, which is the model we're using in this very episode. It's also a top loader and it features a double-speed CD drive which cuts the loading times in half. All Neo Geo CD units feature composite stereo and S-video jacks on the back of the system as well as RGB. A lot of games had arranged music while others had the same music that you'd hear on the cartridge. Internally, the Neo Geo CD ran on a 12.5 MHz 68,000 CPU. It has 65,536 available colors and everything you see on screen is a sprite, even the backgrounds. The system also came with a cool micro-switch control pad, which is great when they're brand new. Unfortunately, they can wear down quickly and must be repaired. These days, you can get the first 2 Neo Geo CD systems for between $100 and $200, while the CDZ goes for between $250 to $400.
All right, Joe. Well, you did it again.
What?
You gave us some awesome information on a piece of hardware.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, the system's great. Actually, I kind of like it. But one thing I miss on that is a reset button, believe it or not. You actually don't realize how much you miss a reset button until you go to push it and it's not there.
Well,
And then you're like, what do I do? I guess just
costs
power
money.
on.
Yeah, you have to power off and then power back on. But, you know, it costs money to put in a reset button. That's just money that they just couldn't
Yeah,
put
they
into
didn't
the
want
design.
to
I don't know.
put it in the
I don't know.
astronomical level. So
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to talk about some games. They're going to show you the Neo Geo CD games and stuff like that. And, hell, you got the first game, so
All right.
why don't you kick it off for us?
Okay. Ninja Commando is a top-down vertically scrolling run-and-gun game. You can choose from 3 different warriors to get you through the game, and for the most part each of them control the same. Each one has a normal shot, and the faster you can mash the button, the stronger the shot becomes. It's a pretty cool idea, and it works really well, but the muscles in your hand and wrist will probably ache after a short time. Mine did. Another cool idea is the use of button inputs for different shots. For example, holding down for 2 seconds and then pushing A will release a powerful attack that's very helpful. Each character has other cool moves like this as well. You also have a special attack which is strong, but it takes off a chunk of your life bar. And finally, there's an evade button which gets you out of range of enemy attacks, but you're still vulnerable. You can throw a big star while doing this evade move, and it does some nice damage too. Graphically, the game is as you'd expect from a Neo Geo game with nice sprites and lots of detailed backgrounds. One thing that I don't really like are areas that shouldn't be accessible, like going from water onto this dock. You should have to jump up here, but you just walk over it as if it's part of a normal path. The music's mostly good with a few exceptional tracks. All in all, it's a fun game.
Now, I'm not normally the hugest Fatal Fury fan, but I really like real Bout Fatal Fury. This one is a lot of fun to play, and it feels more responsive and fluid compared to the previous games in the series, especially parts 1 and 2. You can jump around 3 different planes, foreground, midground, and the background. The controls have changed from the earlier games, so now there's a button dedicated to switching planes, and I like that a lot. The controls are also very responsive, and of course, I really like playing as Mai. I don't know why, but she's just fun to play. Portions of the stages are destructible, which is always cool. But watch out, there are now out of bounds, which is really weird for a 2D fighting game. My biggest gripe with this game is that you need to beat 3 different characters before the stage changes. It's a nitpick, really. I'm sure the cartridge version doesn't need to load between the matches, so it's probably more seamless to play there, but still, this game is really cool. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special was the next in the sub-series, and it arrived 2 years later. This one features only 2 planes to fight on instead of 3, just like the first 2 Fatal Fury games, but I actually prefer it that way. There's more characters to choose from here, and everything has a very polished feel to it. And of course, this one is just a blast to play. I like it a lot more than the first Real Bout game. The controls are tight and responsive, and I never found myself struggling to pull off any of the moves. The graphics are great. Like most other Fatal Fury games, each round looks slightly different than the last since a little bit of time has passed. I love that kind of attention to detail. The music is great with lots of CD quality tunes. In fact, when you beat the game, you're treated to a very long music video. Not really something you'd expect to see on the Neo Geo, but it's cool, I guess. This is actually exclusive to the CD version of the game. So screw you, everyone who spent thousands of dollars on a cartridge version. Actually, it's nowhere near that expensive. Overall, this is a really fun game. It's not one of the more rare titles out there, but I find it to be one of the more enjoyable ones.
And here we have King of Monsters 2. I reviewed the first game in our Neo Geo X video, and I liked it. Part 2 is a good sequel because it's more of the same with some new gameplay. Sadly, this time around you can only choose from 3 monsters, but at least they're all fun to play. Instead of just a straight up wrestling match like the first game, this time around the levels seem much bigger. You'll rampage your way through cities, canyons, and other locales, destroying almost everything in sight. Doing so makes you feel so huge and unstoppable, and you'll collect power-ups and points along the way. Toward the end of the level, you'll fight the boss character. There's no pinning him down this time, as once his life bar empties, he is dead. Dead. But you'll die a lot before that happens. These boss battles are fun and actually seem to last a long time. I still really like the grandeur of the levels. It's so fun and satisfying to destroy buildings, boats, planes, and helicopters. Oh man. I only wish little people would run for their lives while you're demolishing the cities, but I guess you can't have everything. The gameplay is fairly smooth with only little hints of slowdown here and there. I like this sequel and it's a fun way to kill a couple of hours.
Pulstar is the second shooter inspired by R-Type on the system, the first being Last Resort. This one features a lot of pre-rendered sprites and even some cutscenes. Now I normally don't like this kind of stuff, but they look pretty damn good here. Unlike R-Type, you can't detach your frontmost module and use it to shoot all around you, but it can block a lot of the weaker enemy shots. The power-ups that you pick up obviously affect your weapon, but also your charge attack. You'll be relying on this attack for most of the game, so you're going to want to pick a favorite which works best for you. I kind of like this green attack because it's wide, even though it's not as powerful as some of the other attacks. The game is slow moving and methodical, but that really doesn't bother me at all. In fact, everything has a rather epic feel to it. You can definitely see the influence from R-Type in some of the weapons and even in some of the stages. But it borrows from other games too. Remember this guy from Gradius 2? Yeah, he's attacking you in this stage taken from Life Force. But that's okay, I think it's pretty cool. I really love the graphics in this game. Great color and scrolling with lots of stuff on screen, even if it does cause some slowdown. The music is awesome as well, and it lets you know that this game means business. It's not an easy game, but it's definitely a recommended one.
What kind of a Neo Geo system overview would be complete without a Metal Slug game? Or 2 even. Here's the first Metal Slug, and since we've talked about other versions in the past, I won't go into a lot of detail. I will say that this version plays great with very little slowdown. It sounds very good with all the great voices, and the music also sounds really good. It makes me feel like I'm ready to lay down my life for a good cause. Well, I mean the life of my game sprite, not mine. You crazy? What a great game this is, and every time I play it, I'm always amazed at the graphics. The amount of detail in every level and the smooth animation of all the characters sometimes just boggles my mind. I think one of my favorite weapons is the flamethrower. I can never seem to get enough of an enemy soldier screaming in pain while his body burns. You can almost see the agony in his face as it's lit up by fire. Poor little bastard. That'll teach you for being an enemy. Anyways, this is just a great game all around, and you probably don't want to pay for the AES, MVS, or even CD versions, as all of them are quite expensive. You can, however, play the game on one of the many SNK compilations, Metal Slug compilations, or even on virtual consoles. Metal Slug 2 is pretty much what you'd expect from a sequel, which is more awesomeness. The artwork in all the levels is just as beautiful as the first game, if not more so. Your character can transform in this game. In level 2, if you get breathed on by a mummy or get dumped on by a bat, you'll turn into a mummy. You move slower, but you're not dead. Well, maybe you're kinda dead because you're a mummy, but you can still fight. If you collect a certain vial, then you can transform back into a human again. Also, in level 4, if you eat too much food, you become super fat, and you move very slowly. You can change back to skinny if you eat diet powder or just don't eat any more food. Oh, how I wish I had a can of diet powder in real life. The game plays well, but there's a lot more slowdown in this one, and it pauses to load mid-level and even before bosses. It's not a big deal in my book, but others will complain. It's still a super fun game that everyone should experience.
Overtop is one of the few racing games on the Neo Geo. This one is an overhead racer with a slight isometric view. You can pick from several different types of cars. Let me tell you, I'm kind of regretting choosing this Ferrari because this snowy hill climb really isn't what they're made for. I like the graphics style here and the music is alright. Unfortunately, it's just not tremendously fun to play. Even with the map in the upper left corner, it's hard to properly predict your turns and even harder to keep from bumping into the wall. Also, the game loads after each checkpoint and it's not that far between each one. But hey, why play Overtop when you can play Neo Drift Out? Yeah, Neo Drift Out has got to be one of my favorite top-down racing games. This one is a rally racing game and it kicks ass. Choose from 3 different rally cars and off you go. The game zooms in as you slow down and out as you go faster. I really like this and it definitely adds to the excitement. I love drifting around the corners, and even though I'm not really an expert at it, I still have a ton of fun doing this. Like Overtop, there are also multiple routes you can take in each stage. This game was never officially made available for the AES cartridge system, and I have no idea why not. Maybe everyone only wanted fighting games? Who knows? I kinda suck at the game, but I still have a blast playing this.
Samurai Spirits, or Samurai Shodown as it's called in the West, is one of the seemingly endless amount of fighting games on the Neo Geo. It takes place in feudal Japan and is known for its weapon-based fighting. Each character is equipped with a sword or some other instrument of pain and death. To be honest, I'm pretty bad at these games, but I do kind of enjoy playing them. No, I don't enjoy getting my ass kicked over and over again, but I really like the backgrounds and music. All are set in an age long past and are really nice to behold. The music is great as it has that ancient Japanese feel to it, and some of the tracks even have modern guitar riffs here and there. As for the fighting action itself, it moves a bit slow, and I only say that as I'm actually kinda used to the Street Fighter series. Most of the fighting is done with blades, but a lot of the characters have projectile attacks that always seem to get blocked. It's an okay game, and a fun change from Street Fighter. Samurai Spirits 2 was a good follow-up to the first game. It does what a great sequel should do. The game comes with new fighters, new moves, and it even moves faster than the first one. I had a lot more fun playing this game than the first, as it just felt that my button commands were actually being executed. As expected, the graphics are great and the backgrounds are all just as beautiful. The music is still good, but not as ancient feeling as the first game. This is a good entry to the series and is at least moving in the right direction. Samurai Spirits 3 came along, and it seems like they changed the whole scheme of the game. Everything has a much darker feel to it. A lot of the characters, if not all of them, have been redrawn and seem to be more evil looking. A new thing that was added this time around was being able to select between two types of the same character. You have the Slash character, which is the regular fighter that we've known in past games, and a Buzz character, which is more of a deviant type character. Also in this game you have a weak, medium, and strong Slash, and one kick button, whereas in previous games you had two of each. Again, the game boasts some great backgrounds to fight in front of, and the music has a different feeling to it, but still has some really strong tunes. Even with all the changes they've made, this is still a really fun game. Samurai Spirits 4 came out, and again it feels like a much different game. This time they went back to a palette with much brighter colors, although the game still plays like Part 3. It has really fluid controls and animations and is just a fun game to play. Really nice looking backdrops, and again some fantastic music make this game a coveted part of a Neo Geo CD collection. The only real problem I have with all the games in this series is when you're playing a two-player game, the winning fighter cannot change their character. They're stuck with the same fighter until they lose. I feel a good fighting game should let you choose a different fighter after each match if you want. That being said, I really haven't spent as much time as I would like to with this series. I know it's a lot deeper than what I've experienced, and eventually I'd like to play a lot more. Just take my word for it that these 4 games are worth your time if you have any interest at all about Samurai Shodown.
Savage Rain is a pretty cool fighting game. We're playing this on a Japanese system, hence the title screen. Anyway, you've got 10 characters to pick from, none of them tremendously interesting, but they'll do. In this game, you can jump back and forth between 2 planes, kind of like Fatal Fury, only I think that this game pulls it off pretty well. Obviously, you can land blows when jumping to a dimension, as the game calls it, where your opponent is, but you can also attack across the dimensions with projectile attacks. It's really satisfying when they try to attack you from afar and you just deflect it back at them and kick their ass. The moves are fairly easy to pull off, and as with most Neo Geo fighting games, they give you hints on the special moves you can do during the continue screen. I also recommend that you switch the controls to Type 2 so that switching dimensions is dedicated to its own button and therefore a lot easier to do. I think that the graphics look really good for the most part and the scaling is implemented really well. The music is pretty cool as well, but it's not really anything I'd want to listen to outside of the game. Some people in the Neo Geo community don't really care much for this game. All I know is that I enjoy it, and that's what matters to me. Okay, we're about halfway done, I think, with the games.
It's pretty quick.
Okay, well, do you just want to get back in and covering more?
Well, yeah, I mean, how many more fighting games are there? Because there's been a lot so far.
I really don't know.
Okay, well, there's a lot of
more.
There's a lot of fighting games on this system.
There are. Everyone knows that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it would be nice to have some part 2s on some of their other games, like Magician Lord 2.
They were making that, but I guess they stopped to make a fighting game, probably.
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably, what do they make? World Heroes? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like anyway, let's get on to more games.
Okay.
Far East of Eden, Kabuki Clash is a cool fighting game by Hudson Soft. That's right, Hudson Soft. And it's based on their Tengai Makyu series. This game kicks ass. You pick from an assortment of zany-ass Tengai Makyu characters. As you fight, items will be dropped that can either help you or hurt you or your enemy. So if a purple bottle happens to drop, try to make sure your enemy picks it up so they get stunned and you can pummel their ass. The fighting engine itself is pretty good. I found most of the moves fairly easy to pull off and everything is extremely responsive, just like how it should be. The game has a really hyper pace and that really adds to everything else here. The graphics are awesome, even though they don't zoom in and out like a lot of other Neo Geo fighting games do. The backgrounds really bring the game alive with tons of vivid color and well-drawn artwork. And the music kicks all sorts of ass with a cross between ancient Japanese flavor themes and hard rock. It's a great fit and it really brings up the energy level. And yes, I ripped the music so I can listen to it on my iPod. Some people may call this game Samurai Shodown Light, but whatever, I had a lot of fun with it and it's definitely one of the better ones in my opinion. Check it out.
Puzzle Bobble is a great puzzle game, and I'm wondering why we didn't cover it in our super popular puzzle game episode. It was super popular. Next to Tetris and Dr. Mario, this is easily my third favorite puzzle game. It's highly addictive, so much so that it's one of the very few games I can actually get my wife to play. Anyways, as you can see, the object of the game is to match colored bubbles. Matching 3 or more will make the bubbles pop. The object of the game is to clear the board of all bubbles. It's very simple, but like I said, it's very addictive. Once you get into the game, you can do more damage to your opponent by dropping more bubbles. Stack them up on each other, and if you can release one of the higher bubbles, everything underneath comes crashing down. Graphics aren't amazing, but do they really need to be? The music is very catchy, but sadly there's only one tune while playing the game. This game is more widely known in the US as Bust a Move, and it came out on almost every other platform available, so be sure to check it out.
Crossed Swords 2 is an exclusive game for the Neo Geo CD. That's right, this was never released for the AES home system nor the NVS arcade system. Is saying system after MVS or AES redundant? Oh well. This game is basically like Arcade Punch-Out meets Dynamite Duke in a medieval setting with a purpose. Now, I haven't played the first Crossed Swords, but I imagine that this one has twice the action and twice the excitement. It is Crossed Swords 2 after all. To be honest, I really wasn't expecting a lot from this game, but I was pleasantly surprised. I really like it. You pick from 3 different characters, and they're all pretty good, but I think I prefer playing the ninja the most. Your wireframe character can attack, jump, block, and even dash to the side. Basically, you battle the enemies which jump towards you and land on the plane where you spend all of your time. You can use magic to attack if you have any, and some magic even affects enemies that are waiting in the background. Halfway through each act, a shop appears and you can upgrade your weapons, raise your level, or refill your life and magic. Well, if you have enough cash, that is. The graphics here are awesome, and I really like the settings with robots and even aliens attacking you back in the olden days. It's just crazy. I know it kind of looks confusing to watch me play this, but when you're the one actually playing it, it really isn't confusing at all. Oh, and I love the music here. It's really moody and definitely draws me into the game. I'm really glad I got to play this. It's a great exclusive for the system.
Top Hunter is a unique side-scrolling action game. You can pick from 4 worlds right away, which is nice. The final level is available only after the first 4 are complete. The game is played on 2 planes, and you can switch between them as often as you like. For the most part, you'll be doing lots of switching as there are triggers that you need to push or rings to pull on both planes. Fighting is easy, and you have a nice elastic arm for long attacks. You can also do special controller inputs for more moves like a fireball or this ground smash thing. All the levels are really good looking with nice detail. Sadly, some parts of the game suffer from a bit of slowdown. It's not horrible, but you'll notice it when you're playing. And there also seems to be a fair amount of loading. You can't pick which character you want to play as. Player 1 is always Roddy and 2 is Kathy. The music isn't anything great, and in fact I can't recall any of the music after I beat the game. I had a decent time with this game, but nothing about it really stood out as being super cool.
Fighters History Dynamite is the second game in that series by Data East. You can tell by playing it that this is kind of an early-ish game on the system. There's still some fun to be had though. You get to choose from 13 different characters. For the most part, it's a pretty generic fighting game, but it did manage to keep my interest with its fun characters and occasional cartoon sound effect. Why that sound effect is in there, I have no idea. The stage changes from day to night between rounds, kind of like they do in Fatal Fury games. The graphics are otherwise fairly good, but nothing amazing. The same can pretty much be said about the music. In the US, this game is called Karnov's Revenge. Yeah, remember Karnov, the Russian guy who blows fire? Well, he's back, and now he's Chinese. He still blows fire, though. Overall, it's an average game that's worth it if you can find it for cheap.
Viewpoint is an isometric shooter. As you may or may not know, I'm not a big fan of isometric games. There's only maybe 1 or 2 games that have an isometric view that I actually enjoy, and this isn't one of them. It's kind of sad too, because this game is actually very pretty. I'm a big fan of the graphics here, and everything looks really nice. But I have a hard time with this shooter being isometric, as I really lose track of where I am compared to the background. I guess instead of looking at my ship, I should always look at its shadow? I mean, what's the fun of that? Anyways, your ship controls well and has a single shot until you pick up this options icon for a 3-way shot. The power shot that you get when holding down the fire button is really powerful and can destroy a lot of medium-sized enemies in one hit. You can have super bombs to help you with bosses or sticky situations. I like this rolling flame wave. If you release it at the right time, when your enemy is backtracking, it will do some massive damage. It took care of this first boss very quickly. Again, I don't think this is a bad game in any way, it's just that the viewpoint is what really ruins it for me.
Ironclad is another game that's exclusive to the Neo Geo CD and it's only in Japan. There was an AES cartridge made, but it was never officially released. Anyway, this is sort of a horizontal shooter. I say sort of because there's a slight angle to the view, so you're kind of looking down on your ship and everything you see. And yes, this one is kind of inspired by R-Type as well, but that's okay. You can merge with your unit to form a new weapon that's powered up independently of your standalone weapon. You don't have a stock of ships, but instead a power meter which can be refilled if you collect certain icons. You select your stages in a manner that's very similar to the Darius games. Darius? Yeah. You also get to choose from 3 different ships. This isn't a bad game, but it's really nothing stellar either. The graphics kind of have a dark, blandish look to them, and there's really nothing here that screams Neo Geo. The music is fairly nice though, and it definitely adds to the game for sure. This one also saw a release on the Wii Virtual Console.
Here's Twinkle Star Sprites. This game is a shooter puzzle game, and maybe it was a new genre that ADK was trying to create. I've never played any other game like this before. When you first start playing this game, you wonder what in the hell is going on as you're playing a shooter and hurting your opponent at the same time. But here's actually what's going on in this game. Every time you shoot an enemy, it explodes and destroys surrounding enemies, creating a chain. This in turn will send orbs to your opponent's screen to hurt them. Your opponent can send this back to you by shooting at it. This will also trigger a special attack which sends characters across the screen. If the objects you send to the other side of the screen hits them, part of their life bar is depleted. Once a player's life bar is gone, you get a screen sizing up the winner and the loser. It's all kind of confusing, but damn is it a fun game. Besides the normal shot, you have a charge shot which is very helpful, and some screen clearing bombs which can get you out of tight situations. This is easily the most colorful game I've seen on this system, and it also has some really good music. This is definitely a game to have in your collection and can be had on the Saturn, Dreamcast, and PS2 as well.
The Last Blade is a really nice weapons-based fighter. The presentation is awesome. Unfortunately, the Neo Geo CD can't quite handle it as it needs to load all the time. Here's an example of the cartridge version beginning a stage. Now here's that same stage on the Neo Geo CD. Yes, we are going to do this in real time, just so you know exactly how long it takes to load this game. Okay, we're almost done. Here we go. It loads the stage introduction, and then it loads after the stage introduction. And yep, all that loading was just for that. This is really the only Neo Geo CD game where loading is actually an issue, in my opinion. Well, this and its sequel. Maybe I could tell a story? I don't really know of any. Not off the top of my head, anyway. Hey, have any of you guys ever seen that Back to the Future movie? I've seen it. It's pretty cool. I wonder what Michael J. Fox thinks of the Neo Geo. Okay, here we go, finally. After the characters introduce themselves and then taunt each other, it loads again, and it even loads between different rounds in a match for some reason. Unless you're an extremely patient person, I suggest turning the demo cut on, which gets rid of all of the excessive loading and leaves you with just the raw fights. It does kind of kill the overall presentation that way, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, this game is really fun to play, and I love slicing people up with my sword. It kind of reminds me of a cross between Samurai Shodown and maybe Guilty Gear X. You can choose between power and speed abilities, and I always go for power, of course. I'm just a megalomaniac. But that leaves me a tiny bit more vulnerable since it takes me a little bit longer to recover from moves and attacks. The control is super smooth and the game is just a joy to play. The animation is extremely well done, and there's that stage scaling that most Neo Geo fighting games are known for. Some stages have music while others have environmental sounds, which is an interesting choice. This is definitely a great game, but be sure to buy it on cartridge if you want to get it for a Neo Geo system. Hell, they probably have a used one right now down at the thrift store for $5. Go check it out. The Last Blade 2 came out a year later. You can take pretty much everything I said about the first one and apply it here. Yeah, sadly, even the loading issues. Except now it no longer needs to load between rounds, so they improved that. An EX ability was added to the speed and power, which is kind of a cross between the two. But I'm still power mad, so I gotta go for that. EX is probably the better option though, as this game really does not take any of your crap. At all. If you just barge in, the enemy will probably block nearly every single one of your attacks, and you'll be unable to block theirs because you're just too damn slow. It can be frustrating, but it does force you to learn from your mistakes. Everything here is still great, from the graphics, the control, to the sound. This game and its predecessor are some of the best fighting games on the system, definitely top tier stuff. But again, playing it on the CD system, I feel that you'll never be able to fully appreciate it. But if this one's out of your reach, it also came out on the Dreamcast, and that machine can handle anything the Neo Geo can dish out, bar none. In fact, that version is probably your best bet. And there's a Neo Geo CD for you. What did you think of the system overall, Dave?
Overall, I liked it. Mm-hmm. You know, the loading times were, manageable, I think, for this version of this system. From what I know, there's other systems that are, twice as long. But yeah, I'm interested. I would buy one if, it didn't cost more to ship it than buy it. But
yeah. I think it's a nice system as well. I mean, the loading times on the CDZ anyway are a lot quicker than the internet and other people would have you to believe.
Right.
I haven't used a previous Neo Geo CD unit because that would be a lot worse. But the loading times on this are roughly equivalent to like a PlayStation or Saturn game.
Yeah, so it's definitely manageable. I mean, nothing you wouldn't be used to.
Except on The Last Blade, those games just
Well, I probably wouldn't buy those anyways, but...
What? You're an idiot. Anyway,
true.
We hope you enjoyed our Neo Geo CD episode. Let us know what you think about the Neo Geo CD, and thank you for watching GameSack.
Sup?
Oh, hey, Dave. Check out the Neo Geo CD. It plays arcade games at a somewhat reasonable price.
Well, wait a minute. You buy a system that's affordable and games that are affordable? How do you live with yourself? What is it, Joe? You just want to show me another lame-ass system that anybody could buy?
Not this time, Dave! Witness the Neo Geo AES!
Now this is more like it. The system and games are so expensive that everyone will be impressed that you can afford such luxuries. The Neo Geo AES makes you stand out above the rest with games costing $200 or even more, like Neo Turf Masters here, which currently sells for $8,000. Merely pocket change for you, but that's well out of the reach of other average gamers. The Neo Geo AES is truly the best way to show your superiority over everyone else. Congratulations, Joe. You've proven to me that you have more money than sense. And I'll take your old Neo Geo CD, sucker.